Talks, the podcast, where Caribbean culture bridge the gap to therapy and we're normalizing therapy conversations across the globe. Today we have with us Safia Costa. She is a community organizer and we're going to talk about activism and therapy and how activism could be a form of therapy because we all need change and activism is where change begins.
My name is Safia Costa Changlo. I am a community organizer. Happy to be here. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
So you were asking me before about activism and therapy. And I guess what people don't think about or what I want to put into the collective consciousness is that there are different ways to experience therapy, right? So there's the clinical side. You go on it, you talk to a person on the event, and they give you, usually there's like an action plan, and
the intake and everything,
right? And there's all the different methodologies about the ways that people can do that. But something that is more systematic is harder to treat with this type of approach of therapy. And so my way of looking at it is that if there are systematic things that are impacting my wellness, what better medicine than to take action against it or to solve the problem? And so that's why I think of activism, in my case community organizing, as a form of therapy. We often lean on our community. Not many years ago, but a few years ago, I would have started my own journey with therapy in a formal way. And one of the main things that I was asked to do was to think of a few people that I can reach out to when I was self-isolated. And sometimes that's a little tough because when you're going through something or you're having a tough time, it's very difficult to feel like somebody else can help you with your problems, or to feel like you're putting your problems on someone, which obviously the reverse can also be true. You have to think about, if a friend of mine was to come to me, how would I respond?
Yes.
And obviously it'd be like, I would help them, that's my friend. I would help you, you're my friend. But at the same time, when we are calling on our community, we tend to overthink and believe that people don't want to help, or they're not interested, and too much.
Yeah.
And so community is a big part of being able to heal, being able to take care of yourself. We think about the physical aspects in the same way that we think about the mental. You can think about how caregivers, feed, care for, nurture, clean wounds, do all these different things. And the same is true in the mental space. So community organizing and being an active member of your community is also a way to help heal your soul. You also help by helping others.
Yeah.
And sometimes even if you feel stuck in a rut, being able to help somebody else in whatever big or small way, you find that you get a feeling of satisfaction, and all of that builds up to a more happy, wholesome, self.
Yeah.
So that is my.
I like that you use
my
community as a way of therapy, because when we hear the word therapy, we think an office with a therapist and a chair, right, like this.
Very comfortable.
And a structured way to intervene and to talk and to explore some of the challenges in your life. But when we look at activism in itself is a form of relief, right? Because when you have a social challenge, so for example, domestic violence, and then you have an activist who have policies and different programs and ways to strengthen the response to domestic violence, it could bring a lot of relief. So this is just one aspect of community activism. But what have been your experience in terms of feeling that relief?
Oh,
Yeah.
Um, I think something that gives me, I think, relief is honestly seeing other people enjoy something or benefit from something. I'm trying to think of a specific situation, but I wanna place the feeling and travel back there, but that's giving me really recently, but it's I need some therapy. I need some more active therapy. But I think that sometimes for me, simply going to the beach is a real. That's the utmost thing that's coming up in my mind over and over. So maybe it's a slight distraction, but it's also the truth.
Yeah.
I think in my activism, being able to see something in meeting someone in a position of crisis and then seeing them after when they benefited from a program or a change of policy or a referral that I've provided.
Yes.
Also gives that great sense of relief of being like, okay, this is hard work, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. This person was helped, and even though sometimes you wish that your impact is greater, and sometimes those bigger impacts are hard to measure. If I could meet one person, or if I could hold one person's hand through a police report, or through appointment with an attorney about whatever that they're dealing with, and see that person come to a solution, that gives me great relief.
Yeah. And it's also about us creating spaces for people to be vulnerable. So yes, we have social issues, and mental health is something that impacts everybody, right? So it's not a unique experience. We all have mental health needs, and sometimes we can tap into our community to get the support. So sometimes you may have, for example, and we're talking about Trinidad here, right? For a moment, we may have a neighbor who is a bit aggressive. We may have a neighbor playing music loud. Something as trivial as that. We could always reach out to our community supporters, right, or service providers, and they can come and intervene in situations within our own communities and try to mitigate or reduce some of the challenges that we are exposed to as a collective. So
I think that's something that the country needs more of. Is community mediators.
Exactly.
Be able to step into those types of situations. Because we also don't want to leave it to the police. The deal is an abolitionist. I do not believe that the police or the prison system is a solution.
Yes.
And it's not activism.
Bring out the activism.
And people will point to, there's a community arm of the police. But if you have an association of police being a terrorizer, someone who is oppressive, it don't matter if you're wearing an army color, a blue color, or a polo with the police on the back, the community police. That association is there. And maybe just to share a little bit of my own personal experience as a child, really, growing up, my interactions with the police were always frightening. I would have experienced police raid as a young Muslim. I would have also heard stories through the Jamaican about what led up to the 1990 coup. We can get into at the moment, but nevertheless, things happen that led up to these types of things, and so police were always, in my mind and in my reality, an oppressive force. And so, in my big age, to go to the police and say, "Hey, I'm having a dispute with my brother. Can you come and help me?" No. No, thank you. I can't ever bring myself to do that. And I've made the mistake once of involving the police in personal matters, domestic, daughters, and I was sexualized in that they decided that this woman who is coming here in crisis is an object for me to flirt and objectify and all of this, right? So that is one layer. The other layer is that the solution was punitive. We didn't come to a resolution. We were not able to cohabitate going forward. And I think instead of me being the person who was feeling the oppression, I think the tables were turned a little bit. And it's not to be an apologist for people who cause harm, but at the end of the day, you do have to think about what is the impact that this engagement with the police is going to have on you. Is this young person going to turn their life around and become positive and free and liberated? Probably not. So, we do have to use some imagination and think about what are some other ways that we can treat with each other in society that is not about arrest or jail time, put them under the prison. But sometimes I do catch myself saying put them under the prison because people do some monstrous things. But in terms of long-term solutions, and if you want to live in a peaceful and just society, the police is just not the way. Community mediation come through. Community therapists. Let's take the money that we pay in the police and pay some therapists because therapy, no shade, therapy is expensive. And if it was something that the community has really access to, I do strongly believe that we would be in a totally different country if people were able to access therapy and conflict mediation in ways that we are able to access other amenities, transportation, police services,
I agree with making therapy easily accessible, because sometimes when we think about therapy, we may see it as a far-reaching goal. The therapist is over there and I can't access the therapist, especially if I'm in a remote area or if I'm in an area that is considered we have these hot zones, right? Therapists, I never grew up seeing my parents accessing therapy. If you do something that is considered you do something and it is considered outside of the norm, you are basically punished for that, right? Your parents will pull out the belts and then you get licked. So accessing therapy
or even
now,
like socially alienated. People, you're a white person or you're so forward. You want to go and tell your problems to a therapist, and you will get clocked.
But that means something is wrong with you. Right? Every time mental health is associated with somebody, we have this negative idea that something has to be wrong, and there's the label and the biases and the prejudice that comes with that. So if I go to a mental health institution, that means that I am a quote unquote, and we don't like to use this word, but that person is mad, right? And they need therapy or they need mental health intervention.
Everybody needs therapy.
Everybody needs therapy, right?
Like we need water, like we need food, like we need transportation. We need
therapy is a need, it's not a want. And I always say, even if you believe nothing is quote unquote wrong with you, because we have the perception that something has to be wrong in order for us to access therapy. Sometimes life is difficult to manage and you just need some support. Therapy is really mental health support, because if you were to hit your feet and you get a cut on your foot, right, and it's hurting and you need to run to the doctor, you might see that as a priority because now you have a physical scar. But when you have a mental scar, you do not see that as a priority. And this is why sometimes we may put therapy in the back burner, but realistically our mind is the engine that drives the whole body. So if something is wrong with the mind, quote unquote wrong, or your brain needs you need therapy, then you have to see that as a priority. You have to see that as something that is urgent. And this is why even as in community activism, you need to reinforce the idea that we need peace in communities. Peace is equivalent to mental freedom in many aspects, right? Because you're living in a community that doesn't have any peace. It's shooting, it's violence, it's robbery, it's all kind of thing. Then you're not sleeping properly. You're always watching your back. You're hyper vigilant. Sometimes when you hear plenty gunshots, you become, as I say, you may develop post-traumatic stress disorder, right? And because of all of that, it could contribute to poor mental health functioning. And then you find yourself feeling depressed. You're feeling isolated. You don't want to interact with your community members. So creating peace in a community is significant for mental and emotional growth.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you can do it for yourself, but when you do for yourself and you live in a space with others, then that influence spills over. So if you are emotionally sound, just the thought of that, I'm like, oh my God. But if you are emotionally sound and you have children, then you're not gonna pass on the same trauma that you would have had in your youth.
Yeah.
You know, you're not gonna bust out a belt and pick the child.
Yeah.
You know, you're better prepared to deal with some of the stresses of life. You're more able to raise whole, happy, little humans. You're able to manage the stress in your romantic relationships, friendships.
Yeah.
You're able to take care of your parents and deal and understand your parents coming from that level of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And you can say, okay, mommy and them have a little way about them, but you accept them for who they are, and you enough yourself, you're emotionally regulated enough that you can still be in community. Doesn't mean that you have to open up access to yourself completely, but you remain connected to your family, your friends, even if they had a little way, or
Yeah. And I like that you stay connected, because sometimes when we are going through something very turbulent emotionally, we tend to disconnect.
Yeah.
We tend to isolate. We just want to be by ourselves. And connecting could really create some type of bond. Let people know what you're going through. Confide in the right people, I must say, not just any and anybody.
But it's such a simple thing, but it's so hard.
Yeah.
I mean, human beings, we are literally wired as social creatures. And everything that we do, all these societies that we build, all the government, everything that we have created since the beginning of time is towards that effect, right? For us to continue to be social, for us to work together. People would say, well, somebody has to take care of the goats, somebody has to grow the crops, somebody has to take care of the children, somebody has to make fabric. There are all these things that feed into the greater community and the greater good. And sometimes if someone is not well, and using this in a generic way, they could be not well physically, but we're talking about that. But overall, if somebody is not well, then it's responsibility for the community to take care of this person. It's
so important for the community to really provide that space, give support to persons who may be perceived as mentally unstable, because even that person is going through a struggle, right? I work in a mental health institution, and even the patients in the institution, I don't like to say patients because everybody have a name. I respect that, right? The individuality, but they themselves who are struggling with some form of mental illness have challenges integrating in society, even with their immediate family, because sometimes you will hear them say things like, my family do not visit me. I don't have family support. And we had an entire program geared towards family involvement, and few family members show up. So even the family is isolating someone who has a severe mental illness. And even if you don't have a severe mental illness, you may have depression, or you may be experiencing something very challenging in your life, and that causes you to not be as focused or as interactive. And then then people start to label you as, oh, she feels better than other people, or she don't want to interact with us, or you just want to be by yourself, or my daughter is just be in her room all the time, and you hear all
or
these
she vibes
remarks.
heavy.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And then it brings me back to some people might then engage in alcohol use or drugs because
Just
this
a downward cycle.
exactly right this is the negative coping patterns that we see, and then they further shun now by your own community because now you are using these substances,
right, and your behavior probably gets worse or is more unpredictable. And I mean, the sad reality of this is we live in a capitalist society where people's most precious resource is time, is limited. And everybody is hustling to work, everybody's hustling to school, take care of the kids, pick up this, drop this one here, do this, there's all of these requirements. And the last thing that people are going to do in a busy schedule of life is take their time and understand someone to slow down to be able to be a support in a tough situation. And obviously it's not something we could change overnight. This is a global system of economics and everybody is sort of slave to it. But at the same time, if we're able to recognize that we live in such a system, we can have a greater chance of making different choices because we have the perception that, hey, I'm literally running a rat race, but what is more important? Maybe I should go check people, at the institute. Maybe I should take a little extra time and take care of so and so because, this is really my community. This is the people who raised me sometimes, who are now having a difficult time. Many times I've seen elderly people placed on, have you seen me flyers. And it's because they're home alone. Maybe they have somebody that's come by on a weekly basis or periodically. But their mental decline starts to happen. They have, dementia or whatever it is. And they stray away from home. And they in all these different situations. Sometimes they're found and sometimes they're not found. And so, we definitely need to place more value on the human life that we share with each other. Take care of each other, even if it's not your family. But if you see somebody in a situation, like, maybe he's far from home, shouldn't be here, maybe just wearing his slippers, but he's down in town, check with them. Let me see your ID, let me talk to you. Where's your family? Where you live? And try to get some information and, be a keeper. A brother,
and
sister.
as you're saying that, I am thinking about activism. As you're saying that, this is why we need to be advocates for the voiceless, for people in the community who do not have the resources or even the ability to communicate, because we have disabled community members, we have the elderly, we have persons who have chronic illnesses, who very weak and cannot leave their home. And they might be vulnerable because now we have an increase in home invasion. We have an increase in crime. And sometimes if you are so isolated, you may not be aware of what is taking place within your community. In order for you to even make some kind of step, you need to know what is happening. Right?
And what better way to protect yourself from this type of home invasion from community system. Hey, we see somebody strange in the area, or maybe have a WhatsApp group of days or whatever it is, but some way that community is organized so that there is collective power to keep everybody safe. There's collective power to make sure everybody has groceries, everybody. Maybe you could carpool or your children go to school in one vehicle. There are so many ways that we can tap into to take care of each other that we just don't. Everybody, I for myself, and everybody driving into town in a single vehicle, taking up one seat in the car,
right?
Poisoning the atmosphere, killing the environment, running up their own bills because these vehicles don't come free. You have to pay for it, everybody on a payment plan. And I mean, public transportation is its own headache. But what I'm more invested in and interested in promoting is this idea that we can take care of each other.
Yes.
You know, we could
Yeah.
do more mutual aid, we could do more check-ins, we could do things in a different way that doesn't always leave everybody scraping for this help.
Yeah.
You know, and you never know, maybe we would see less home invasions. If you live in a community or a country, Trinidad is small enough, we could do it.
Yeah.
Where all your immediate needs are met. Food, shelter, clothing. What you gonna break in somebody's house and do? To do? You know? Because at that point you're just looking for excellence, right? I'm not saying that society would be perfect if everybody has their immediate needs. Some people greedy. You know, we just see people giving each other a bad drive. It has little elements of human nature that you just can't always anticipate. But if you think of the broader picture, if you think of the broader implications of people being able to take care of each other and have stronger community, oh boy, that's what a world.
You know, you're saying that my mind just going off thinking about how our country could change. Because Trinidad is so small, 1.4 people in this small little island. We can do so much as a collective,
And
as a group.
Tobago.
And Tobago, right? So Trinidad and Tobago, right? We have so much resources as a people, as a collective. And we could be our own police.
Yeah.
Right? We can be our own brother's keeper because we have areas with neighborhood watch.
Yeah.
Right? But not every area have neighborhood watch. And we have neighborhoods that your neighbor invading your home.
Yes.
Right? You grow up with your cousin down the street and that cousin coming to rob you.
Yeah.
Because your cousin didn't go to school or whatever is his economic situation.
Different conditions.
Right? So we have a responsibility. And normally when we think about community, we might be thinking about those people over there or that man on the hill. But we are the community that we are talking about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it starts with us.
And in this day and age, it doesn't need to be all physical. We have so much technology at our, at our fingertips.
Yeah.
WhatsApp. People love to do all kind of shit. But we could use and harness that same power to do something positive and take care of each other.
Yeah.
And say, hey, so and so needs this. Anybody going down to the shop, bring this up the hill. And these things do happen in small pockets, and I've been witnessed it and just been like, that's nice. But it's very few and far in between. It needs to be something that is more like mainstream, where people are accustomed maybe to doing this type of errands and doing this type of care work. And as I'm talking about care work, I'm not advocating that women take front and do all of the care work.
Right.
That is currently the state of affairs, and we are tired. We don't
like that.
need the women to be doing all of the care work, right? This is our shared responsibility.
Yeah.
Everybody has their strengths. We're not gonna, discuss and argue about gender dynamics, who's stronger, who this. Every individual human being has a strength and has a gift and a talent.
Yeah.
And if your gift and your talent is community organizing, get yourself together.
Yeah.
Get plugged into your community and do that work. If your gift or your talent is therapy, therapize,
right?
Give your service. Make sure you set up yourself, make sure you're well educated, make sure you're well prepared, you're trained, you're able to talk to different vulnerable communities, you're accessible, all of these things. So whatever your gift is, it's not something, yes, everybody has to eat, everybody needs a place to live. You have to make sure that you take care of yourself, but at the same time, that gift is something that is meant to be shared. My mom has 6 children, and I always think I'm like, this is way too much of it. My father in total, I think it's 13 or 14. I can keep up with the general number, right? But I had this thought a couple of years ago when my dad passed away, and each one of the siblings was able to help each other through the mourning process in very different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the birthday queen. I love a good calendar. I can
Yeah.
keep track of things. I remind everybody, hey, today is so and so's birthday. And we have a group chat and we all message each other and we say, hey, happy birthday. We check in on each other's kids. We have this way and a resource really throughout the siblingry
Yeah.
that we keep in contact and we keep connected. And there are always situations where I need support, and one sibling or the other is able to help me in some way that is unique to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always been like, well, as I was younger, it felt like we were just too much.
Yeah.
The car too full, the bathroom always full, too much children.
Mm-hmm.
But each and every person has such a unique place
Mm-hmm.
and is so invaluable to the collective.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like the black sheep, but as I got older, I got to realize that maybe being the black sheep wasn't so bad because now I could tell people the truth that other siblings wouldn't mention.
Yeah.
So there's these little gifts in each unique person,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it nobody should be left out.
Yeah.
Everybody has a contribution to make.
Mhm.
Even if you think somebody is strange, or they're a black sheep, or they talk too much, or they're
Yeah.
too political, or they like racial thing, or
Yeah.
everybody has a contribution to make to their community that
Mhm.
makes that community more whole.
Yeah. I like that they speak about the different roles that people play, right? Because sometimes we're in a community and we don't know where to even begin to penetrate the community. You don't know where to start. Yes, you and your neighbor might have a relationship, but
Yeah.
how strong is that relationship? But as you say, we all have something to offer the community, but we need to know who are we in the community.
Yeah.
Because we have communities that we don't know our neighbors. We don't know who is the people who live you don't know who living right next to you, because some communities we have persons who leave in and enter it and all of these things, right? But it's very important for us to, as a collective, to use our strength and to really pull the community together. Because when we think about service providers, we think about the government and the ministries and what they are doing for us as a community.
Yes.
We have service providers.
Their job is to serve, the public, but at the same
Yes.
time, they can only do so.
Exactly. But we are also service providers within our own unique ways. So let's say, for example, you want to beautify your community, right?
Yeah.
You rounds up some neighbors, as we say,
Yes.
right? Gather some neighbors,
Get a cookie
get a cookie broom, right?
and sweep up the place.
Yeah. Exactly.
Correct.
So we have so much strength as a group, right? We have so much unique capabilities. As you say, growing up with your 6 siblings, it taught you a lot about. It might be a lot, but that was a mini community, right?
Yeah. We didn't need nobody else at the birthday party. It was full.
So even having that experience is as though, and that could probably, I'm just saying that can probably be why you like community work, because you recognize the value of strength and bringing people together.
Yeah.
And the fact that once we come together as a collective, we act as a barrier, we act as a support for each other. If something happened to Jerry down the street, Jennifer might know a person who she could contact to help Jerry. So Jerry don't have to feel like he's on a sinking ship.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we think that we're just sinking in our homes, right?
I mean, and sometimes you are, but
throw
a rope, call somebody, get a lifesaver.
Yeah.
But to your point about these communities that are more transient, right?
Yeah.
When you dig down deep and you get into the meat and potatoes about why people are transient.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I lived in Brooklyn for close to a decade.
Yeah.
Right? And there was a point in time where gentrification hit in it. Gentrification is just this process where the poorer people in the neighborhood are ushered out and new, more higher paying tenants moving in. The property values and things like that tend to go up. The prices in the community tend to go up. So whereas it was about 250, now it is $4, and
Oh.
it's like how am I gonna buy a little bagel and cheese every morning with this type of price tag?
Mhm.
But to these new residents, they'll say, "Oh well, this is cheap," because they are custom shopping in maybe Starbucks, whatever big box corporations that they use. Um, and one of the ways that organizers in Brooklyn and other parts across the US have been able to kind of like fight this gentrification that was really widespread was strengthening their communities, like reaching out to property owners, long-term property owners. I mean, Black people fought long and hard to be able to even own property, coming from being property.
Yeah.
And a lot of developers were coming in and pressuring people like, "Oh, look at this lump sum, you're struggling to pay this. You want to go and live in your old country, move back to Jamaica, move back to Trinidad. Look this money, buy some land. It's going to do plenty over there." I mean, they were definitely understand. They were not giving fair price. But the point is, as a poor person, even if you own that home and you raise your children and you're born and you grow here,
Yeah.
as Princess Margaret would say, that lump sum is very attractive. And if you don't have strong connections to the community around you, you'll say, "I just get trouble for parking. It had a shootout last week. The prices in the place going up. I can't afford to live here.
Yeah.
Let me take the lump sum and run." And so that is another way that communities have been broken and disenfranchised. And the same can be perceived in Trinidad and Tobago as well. I mean, when you think about places that people move in, move out, is because the place is either uncomfortable, it's not really up to a proper standard of living, and you're just there for a while. But if those communities with the strength, and the demand, and to grab the cookie, clean up the place, and do what you can in the place that you're planted,
Yeah.
and build a good community there, who would move?
Yeah.
To go
Exactly.
where? To do what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's to me, everything always comes back to this community collective effort of maintaining like a solid. It doesn't have to be a big area. It can be a small area. It could be a street. But nevertheless, those things, that's what builds stronger nature, peaceful nature. So, I mean, we talk about crime all the time.
Yeah.
The government has their solutions, which I don't see how they are solutions.
Right.
Empowering police to do God knows what. But at the end of the day, you can't depend on the government, but also you can't build anything or be secure in any type of way unless you are invested in your surroundings and people around. Because even if you build up a fortress and you live in that fortress, you still have to buy groceries. You still have to go to work with other people. You still have to send your children to preschool with other children. Like there are all these other ways that you still need to engage. And at the end of the day, if something is happening in your area and you think that, well, I have CCTV cameras set up and I have my cutlass under my bed and you have whatever security measures in place, good for you. I just keep my dog where she needs to be to protect my safety and sanity. But you're never going to be fully safe because you might build up a fortress and say, well, I have and them don't have, and that's their business. But where you think if the people don't have, where they gonna get it from?
Exactly.
They're coming by you.
Yeah, exactly.
And all that security camera could catch it on camera. But after you've been invaded or robbed or, God forbid, some form of violence, then all of that is really for nothing. It's a false sense of security. The real sense of security that you could depend on is forming a strong bond with the people that you live around and checking for them the same way they check for you. And just keeping it a buck with everybody that You know, I for all you, you for me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And building.
and people respond to that.
Yeah. And building your community brick by brick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.